Today I'm going to talk about the book The Fault in Our Stars by John Green, which I read recently and I absolutely loved. So I really wanted to share my opinions on it for people to see. I have a piece of paper with all the stuff I want to talk about on because I'm probably going to forget, so I wrote them down. So here's me talking about The Fault in Our Stars. One of the main things I really like about The Fault in Our Stars is it sort of breaks the taboo that death happens to people in real life, because in our society there's sort of a thing where if we don't talk about death it doesn't happen to you, so no one's really prepared for it when it does happen, which I think it sort of stops that, because Hazel knew throughout the book that Augustus would die and that she would die eventually, and she didn't know when that would happen, but she knew it was going to happen, and therefore she was a bit more prepared for Augustus's death. And like the whole thing about where they had the funeral before he died, so she knew it was going to happen, and so it didn't hit her as hard. And I think that's a really good thing to think about, that you will die, and people around you will die, and the people you love will die, but that's okay because it's just a fact of life. And I think in our society we really need to get past the fact that people die, because it seems to be something we don't talk about very often, and therefore it kind of hits everybody really hard when it happens, because we sort of think that everyone is immortal because we never talk about it, but that's not true at all. Another thing I like about The Fault in Our Stars is a good, strong female character. We don't have enough books like this, and this is the first book I've read where it's a complete, well no it's not, because Harry Potter and a couple of others, but this is the only one that that I read recently with a good, strong female character. And the good thing about Hazel is that she knows that she can get through this. She knows she can get through the cancer, and she knows that she won't win, but she doesn't care, and she's fighting anyway. And I think that's really good. And I like the bit where the nurse said, I know you're strong because you called a 10 a 9. And then Hazel says that she was just waiting to use her 10. And I think that's quite a strong thing to do. And I don't know if Hazel herself in the book realised that this was a really strong thing to do. She seems to just think it was an ordinary thing to do. And she spends her entire life fighting cancer. I mean, that's pretty goddamn strong. She didn't break down in the book about her cancer once, and that was amazing. And that was incredible, actually, because Augustus himself broke down, and Augustus was one of the strongest characters in the book. But Hazel didn't, despite the fact that Hazel had, and I think it's probably because she knew she was going to be terminal for a long time, and Augustus thought he was over it, and he didn't, and Augustus was declining a bit rapider than Hazel. But yeah, I just really liked the fact that she was just strong and just a regular woman, and she wasn't, I mean, the book was about a love story, ultimately, but it wasn't at the same time. That's really clever, and that's why I really love John Green. Another reason why it's amazing is the metaphors. Oh my god, the metaphors. They were so perfect and amazing. And I've always hated metaphors and similes and all that sort of stuff in English because I'm not really good at them and I don't really understand them most of the time. But I completely understood every single one that happened in the book, and it was so perfect. And yeah, that if you don't want to read the book purely because it's sad, at least read it for the metaphors and the beautiful word choices that happen, because it really is amazing. And I've never even read another book with that has like captured me with such language as this one has done. It's amazing. So yeah. Another thing I want to talk about is the fact that it allows teenagers to think about death. And as a teenager myself, I know that if you talk about death and dying, it's seen as a bit weird, and if you talk about how, like, the afterlife, it's seen as really weird, and so we can't really talk about it and, like, you say our opinions on the stuff. And the book allows you to, because it gets you talking about it, because that's the point of the book. And some of the book is dedicated to Augustus and Hazel and the others wondering if there is an afterlife, or if there is a God. And we don't really get to talk about that much because it's just not seen as right for teenagers to do. And I would quite like to discuss my views with other people about the afterlife and what happens when we die, and knowing that we could die at any moment, and that's why we should live our life to the full. I mean, there's the whole YOLO thing going around, which I suppose is a little bit like that, but it's not really talked about in as much detail. So that's one of the other reasons why I love this book. Because we do need to talk about death and dying and illness more as a society and as a group of as teenagers and children. Because we need to be prepared for the future when it does happen. Or else we're not going to be able to deal with it, as loads of people don't deal with it very well. And I think if we talked about it more from a young age, then it would be a different thing, and it wouldn't be such a horrible, tragic, like, life-shattering event if we talked about it. I mean, it would be incredibly sad that the person who died wasn't with you anymore, but it wouldn't be so earth-stopping and everything, the be-all and end-all of your life, because it's not. It's the be-all end-all of their life, and you should continue living yours. Yeah. Another thing that I really liked was the Anne Frank house scene, because as a society, I keep using that phrase, oh well, it's true, as a society, we sort of want to preserve the memories of the dead, and the places where the things that people use, like, Hazel was worried that kissing Augustus in the Anne Frank house would be seen as wrong because somebody lived there who died, and we have to respect their memories and we have to keep them preserved or else we'll forget. But then she thinks that Anne Frank kissed someone in this house, so she's not really going to mind. Not if somebody else kisses someone in this house. I mean, it's not a big deal. It's just what happens. And for that reason, she does kiss Augustus in the house, and everyone's really happy. And I think if we stop trying so hard to preserve them, the dead and people who are completely in our memories, then we would have a much more fulfilling life. And I think they're ghosts, if there are ghosts, which there might be, I'm not sure. Again, brings back to the point where we should talk about what happens when we die more, because I don't actually know my opinion on it completely. Right, back to the point. If we stop trying to preserve the dead so much, then we could allow the dead to move on, and we could allow ourselves to move on. Because we try so hard to keep the memories alive that we ultimately forget the memories that matter, I think, in a way. Because we try so hard to keep the little things that we don't remember the big things. And people remember so much about the last time they saw them that they don't, their family or friends who have died, that they don't remember all the happy times they had with them before they died. And I think we should stop trying to preserve them so much. Because I know that if I died, I wouldn't want people to dwell on the fact that I was dead as much, and I would want people to just carry on, because there's nothing they can do about it. Nothing I can do about it. It just happens. So yeah. I'd also like to talk about the fact that the book is not completely tragic, but it is at the same time, and that was really cleverly done. Because I don't know many authors that can do that. I know that can make it so completely and utterly tragic, but not at the same time. Because there were so many witty and funny lines that I was like laughing out loud while crying at the same time during the book. And the only person I know who can do that is my friend, who is also a writer, and she has made me do that because she writes horribly sad stories, but happy at the same time. And she's very good at that, and so is John Green. And I think more people should try and write books that don't have a happy ending, because sometimes things don't have a happy ending. But I'm not saying that all books should not have a happy ending, because sometimes people do have a happy ending. I think there should just be like a good mix of the two, where some books bad things happen, some books good things happen, but not all one or the other. I'm getting really distracted by my hand movements on the computer screen. Ooh. I also like the fact that in the book, it's not a definite ending. You don't know what happens to Hazel. You don't know what happens to Isaac. You don't know what happens to Augustus's parents. You don't know what happens to Augustus's sisters. You don't know what happens to anyone, really. Which I think it's really cleverly done, because the entirety of the book they've been talking about this, Hazel's favourite book, where there is no real ending. And I think it's good because it allows people to invent their own endings, to imagine what they want to happen, and that's good because people need to use their imagination a little bit more, I think, in today's times. People have really stopped doing that, and I really hate that because it's just not good. But I think the fact that the book just sort of ends, it ends where it's supposed to end, and it doesn't try, and John Green doesn't try to make an ending that's not going to be there, because if he did make an ending, Hazel would ultimately probably die. But by leaving it there, the reader can construct many different scenarios where either Hazel dies or Hazel's okay, or where Hazel dies and her and Augustus meet in heaven, where Isaac finds a new girlfriend, maybe even where Isaac and Hazel get together, though I really doubt that one personally, but it could happen. And I think that's one of my favourite things about the book, that it just ends where it's supposed to. And few books actually do that properly. And it's just a really, really good book, and I think everybody should read it. And I think if this book isn't a book that we're analysing in English lessons in 100 or 200 years, then people are seriously missing out, because it's amazing. And I would highly recommend everybody reading this book. So thank you for watching this, if you watched it all the way through, because it is 11 minutes plus, which is a long time for me to be talking about one book. And if you have any other suggestions for books you'd like me to talk about and give my opinions on, leave them in the comments. Thank you!